Hello everyone and welcome. If you're not familiar with my channel, my name is Jen, the Taxidermy Witch, and we do all kinds of things on this channel, but right now we are continuing some reading. We're reading this book chapter by chapter. It's been very talked about within the spiritual and folk magic, root work, conjure, hoodoo, this whole community, right? So I thought, since it's on back order a lot of places or hard to find, however I did find it at thrift books. I saw it, I checked the day before yesterday, and it was $15.78. I didn't see how many copies there were. So I do know that at least in America you can get it on thrift books. So I'm going to start doing reading chapter by chapter. So the second chapter is, we read the foreword, introduction, and whatever, all the intro stuff, and introduction. Okay, we've read that whole part. Then we read chapter 1 in a separate video, and we talked about it afterwards. Now we're on to chapter 2, which is called Down Devil's Run, and it's the stories and superstitions, again, of the conjure and folk magic from Appalachia. So this is by Jake Richards, Stark Sauce, as well as a lot of other people in the community that we look up to and also adore this book. So I thought that we would start with the reading and then say that I would like to, after the reading, just do a little bit of like talking about what we just read through, you know, and making that the interactive part of the video. So if I'm not able to talk to you during the reading, I apologize, but we'll get started here. Welcome everyone. Okay. I like this book stand, but it's too high for this table. It's a bummer. That's more comfortable. Okay, so is everybody ready? Everybody, thank you for joining me. If you need anything to be said, Madam Butterfly's here, and you can let her know, or any of the other moderators, and they will let me know later on. Alright, let's move along. So, Down Devil's Run, Stories and Superstitions. The stories and superstitions that run through these hills are like one place you can find witchcraft and conjure, whether it's the methods of precaution prescribed against bad luck or tidbits of how you heal a dis-ease. There are stories of odd creatures in the wild, women keening over their lost loves, and the devil himself laughing over the river. We'll begin with the latter. Located outside of Irwin, Tennessee, overlooking the Nolichucky River, the Devil's Looking Glass is a haunted cliff of rock, standing hundreds of feet tall and covered with the fingerprints of death. There are countless tales of this mountain cliff and the waters that churn below, but all recount only a couple here. The first is of a Cherokee woman who drew herself off the cliff. The story goes that she and her lover were very close, and he was taken into battle to fight for his people. He didn't return. The woman's grief overtook her, and she climbed to the top of the cliff and jumped, calling for her lost love as she fell. Many people have seen her wading in the waters below, keening for her mate. Others say that early in the morning you can hear her singing for her lover to return to her, a song that turns into a cry and wailing as the day grows old. How is sound, everybody? Sound is good? Sound is good, yeah? Great. Alright, other stories of the cliff tell of banshee cries in the area. We read a little bit of this like a week ago, I do believe, and we read a little bit of these superstitions, but I've been researching the banshee since then. So that's been interesting, because it's a word that I knew, but I just knew it because my dad used to say, she could scream like a banshee. And so it was in my vocabulary, but I had no idea what it was until it came up in this reading. So I've been researching it this week, and we should definitely do a banshee video, you know. All right. Yeah, other stories of the cliff tell of banshee cries in the area. It is said that a man and his pregnant wife lived in a cabin along the river, 2 miles away from the nearest neighbor. One night, the man heard a sound coming down the river and mistook it to be one of the cries of a bobcat. Something fell and then Otis made a noise. The old man, expecting to get a new pelt, wandered down the riverbank following the sound. As he wandered, he noticed that the sound didn't seem to be getting any closer. At one point, the sound seemed to be coming from the other direction. After hours of searching, he gave up and started back to his cabin. When he arrived, he found his wife in labor. Hours later, both his wife and the baby died. I have personal experience with this. My grandparents lived up on a hill in a wooded area that led to a graveyard. One day, while playing in the forest, I heard a cry. It was odd because it sounded like a cat, but also like a woman's scream. It didn't happen in the usual pattern ascribed to an animal in heat. Instead, it sounded like an alarm. Within the week, my grandfather died of his 7th heart attack. Now the banshee didn't kill my grandfather, and it didn't kill the woman and her baby in the other story either. On the contrary, banshees are considered a type of little folk that come over with European immigrants, and they are one of the few spirits who care for humans. They just come down to warn of death, and they mourn the person's passing, and it's though they are drawn to anyone with a strong Irish blood. Irish stories describe the banshee as a woman who stays near water to wash her grave-stained robes. They say she had bloodshot eyes from crying for the dead. Banshees were also said to have a comb stuck in their hair. So it has always been a bad omen to find a discarded comb on the ground. Remember we talked about this? We read through this whole thing the other day. Is everybody remembering that? How long ago was that? Yes, so always been a bad omen to find a discarded comb on the ground. Another old tale of the Devil's Looking Glass says that a witch named Ol' Mis' Wilson lived in a cabin near the rocky bottom of the cliffs and would call up the restless dead from the river and entertain them with charms and spells. Her parties ended at sunrise, at which time the spirits returned to the rocks and beds. After her death, it was said that every Halloween at midnight, the rocks in the cliff grow eyes. That reminds me of like Salvador Dali's work where he sees faces in the cliffs and stuff. I watched 3 or 4 Salvador Dali documentaries yesterday. One's called Dali... What's it called? When I think of it, I'll tell you. Dirty Dali. It was awesome. It was about a first-hand experience of a friend of his. Awesome. It's about an hour on YouTube. Alright. So, let's see. Halloween at midnight, the rocks and the cliffs grow eyes. The eyes of the spirits are looking for something to entertain them again. The creepiest tale I was told growing up was this: if you stood on the banks before the Devil's Looking Glass on a real foggy morning, you could chance to see the devil himself shaving in the mirror and laughing at you. This isn't only this isn't the only association with the devil has with the Nolichucky River. There are tales of a lone rider who rides up and down the banks on moonless nights. It is said that you'll hear hoofbeats get closer and closer until they're right up on you, at which point you'll hear them go off in the other direction and lie down without ever seeing a soul. No one could ever get a clear view of who the rider was that was scaring folk. Only an occasional blurred shadow on the bank that passed by fast as ever. A couple decades ago, a few men took it upon themselves to get to the bottom of who this rider was. They camped on the bank overnight, waiting for the rider to show. One person stayed up to watch. Around 3 a.m., the watchman began to hear hoofbeats down the river. He woke the others up, and they scrambled around, tying a rope to a tree at the water's edge and holding the other end some 10 yards back. The other plan was to pull the rope, to rip the horse, and throw the rider off when they passed. To trip the horse. Thank goodness it said to trip the horse. The hoofbeats got closer and closer. The men readied themselves. A shadowy blur passed by, and with a force, it pulled on the rope, yanking the men forward on their faces. The hoofbeats continued in the other direction, their pattern and beat unhindered by the rope of the men's efforts. The men were confused. One suggested it could be a ghost because it pulled on the rope. Then they saw hoofprints in the mud and validated it wasn't a ghost because goats don't have footprints in mud. Yeah, they can't make footprints, for they don't. However, upon further investigation, they found the hoofprints weren't U-shaped like a horse's. They were cloven like a goat's. How freaky. It was at that point the men ran back home yelling. It was the devil himself. It's like at that point in Chucky, which is a movie I just rewatched and haven't watched since it came out in the 90s. Not a big fan of that movie, but that's okay. Rewatching it again, it was great though. But the point where she picks him up and because she found the batteries in the box, because she was going to throw the box away like a month later after the little boys had it. And the batteries fall out, so she looks in him and there's no batteries, but he's been talking, this doll's been talking. It's like that. It's like when you look down and it's supposed to be a horse's print, you look down and it's a cloven hoof. Scary stuff. Alright, so everyone was yelling it was the devil himself. No one dared look for the identity of the rider again. For this story, the river was named Devil's Run. Stories have warned since not to be caught out on the banks at night alone, or else the devil may challenge you to a race for your soul. What do you reckon your chances are of winning? There are countless accounts, of unexpected deaths and missing victims at the Nolichucky River. The water unexpectedly rises and the current's strength intensifies without warning. It happens so often, there have been plenty of times we found dead animals on the shores, taken down and drowned in an instant. Whether it's lovers camping on the banks or deer stopping for a nighttime drink, the river has consumed many lives. Because of its dangerous nature, the Cherokee called the river Black Waters. There have been accounts of transparent fishermen standing on the shore holding fishing rods. That was interesting, that flicker of the flame. Holding fishing rods, while others tell of children playing in the waters only to disappear behind their own splashing. Whew. Common sense tells folks to avoid this area altogether at night or without company. While it's still a great spot for fishing and kayaking, many still get an eerie feeling when gazing at the rapid currents cutting their way between the mountains. We also have our share of ghosts. Ghost stories have been a major portion of storytelling in these hills, and we hear them from a young age. While mostly reserved for camping trips and time spent waiting for Halloween night, most of these stories are passed down in the family and are told whenever the children ask. My family went every year to the Cherokee Festival at Sycamore Shoals. So I also grew up on the old Cherokee tales of bears and blue cornbread. Yum! I want blue cornbread. That sounds amazing. Only if it's made in a cast iron pan. Yum. Stories of the witch Selu and her sons, Kanati, the lucky hunter, as well as tales of the saints and haints in the hills. Before my generation, everyone listened to the stories of the elders, and these stories were stored in their bones and teeth, so they could be recounted and told again in their other times and places. Thankfully, I was one of those who listened. That got my gears turning on some stuff. I'm not going to interrupt the book, though. Of course, not all hints and creatures are benign, and the old folks knew that. For this reason, there are superstitions, sayings, and charms to teach and protect people from hauntings and evil spirits. For instance, tying a red piece of yarn to your right upper arm or setting knives up in the window will do just that. And sewing a piece of red ribbon into the inner lining of your shoe heel will protect you from ghosts making you sick. Going through these stories, one can see the close relationship we often build with these spirits, loving them like family unless they cause harm. For those spirits that were troublesome, preachers were often asked to come and clear the home. My grandfather did so frequently, among his other gifts of blood stopping and wart charming. I haven't heard of wart charming before. Has anyone heard of that? Hello to everyone who's here. Hello, hello, hello. One saying my family always uses is to get rid of a haint or troublesome spirit. So that's what a haint would be, is a troublesome spirit. One way you get rid of it is to ask, what in the name of Lord do you want? And it should stop. By now, you're probably wondering how these stories have any connection to folk magic. The tales show the mindset that mountain folk have and had for centuries in these hills, mirroring that of their ancestors in the old world. This same mindset was held by native peoples. Back in the day, people would come home from church on Sunday and be just fine with talking to the dead that roamed in their land. These stories are woven on battlefields, embroidered by the pulpit and choir, and hung on the clothesline in the holler. In the yard of the... Where are we at? In the yard of the lonesome sinner. Each tale adds to the culture and community beliefs of the people of Appalachia. These tales are both the mother and the child of superstition at its greatest. They teach us to be kind and careful, but stern and strong. They teach us to mind our own most of time and what will happen should we act otherwise. When was the last time an old tale talked about someone who wasn't snooping around places? Following are some of the superstitions and beliefs I was raised on in East Tennessee. So far, this is sounding exciting, and you know, there's just going to be some sections. The first section is superstitions and charms for witches, for protection, for good luck, for bad luck. This is a really long chapter. I'm hoping that we get through it in one video. For healing, for marking and mirroring, for birth labor and childcare, and that's it. But that's a huge chapter because it's like, I don't know, 14 pages. So we may have a part 1 and part 2 of this video. I'm hoping we can get through it in one. I am going to have to stand up though because my feet are falling asleep. I hope that's not a weird sign of anything. I'm sure I'm fine. So let's just adjust the camera and then I'll stand up and read to you. Hello everybody, thanks for being here on my live stream. And we're going to do a catch-up afterwards. I did list ways to support in the description below, and that is via, I'll put her right there, how about that? And that is via Patreon and Etsy, so those are both down in the description. Alright, off we go. Superstitions and charms. Stories and superstitions often intersect, like a complex dream catcher. There's a very little distinction between the two, based on their particular origin. Here I will share some of the good old superstitions and tricks of these hills. Witches. Here's the perfect place to fill you in about what mountain folks think of witches and how they differ from doctors and healers. This is also a good time to say that I am not a doctor. I am just here to help out my friends. We're all here reading books and trying to help educate each other. So that's what we're doing, right? Good stuff.
Taco place was closed.
Okay. Witches were thought to have made pacts with the devil. Read the Bible backwards and... Excuse me. Alright. Witches were thought to have made pacts with the devil, read the Bible backwards, and consulted with demons to gain their conjuring knowledge. This belief stems from Europe primarily, where the same beliefs are rampant throughout records of the Inquisition. Witches were said to go through initiations into black magic, whether it was shooting a silver bullet at the Bible while cursing Jehovah, or waiting in the family cemetery for the devil to arrive and have intercourse with him. These are interesting. While most accounts of true witchcraft follow no such belief, it is apparent that the reputation of a conjure person was primarily based on the attitude of the community. The Yarb, Y-A-R-B as in boy, Yarb doctor was seen as a circumstance-born healer, gifted by God, and although they could be found mixing up some revenge for a client's enemy, they were still labeled good, as the community believed their powers to be a gift of the Most High. The witch, on the other hand, was susceptible to a much harsher judgment from society. It was believed that the outcast, crazy woman up the holler was mixing up potions, dancing with the devil, and tossing... Where do we go? Okay. And tossing curses from her perch. There are stories of witches charming cats and collecting them in bags. That would be a horrible thing to do. Cursing cattle and blasting crops. Those that were documented in these tales were the Yarb doctors. But of course that was fine because the community thought well of them. The rest were often unverified tales. The lines between the witch and the Yarb doctor were blurred at best and non-existent at times, save for the reputation given them by the community. There are many stories that have made their way over from the Green Isle, telling of folks getting lost and taken in by the wee ones, and also acquiring knowledge and gifts from the little folk. other are simply marked by God. Marked by God. This term is used to denote those who are born in a certain circumstance, such as having a caul over the eyes, caul, C-A-U-L. Being a seventh son or daughter. Is anyone here a seventh sibling? Oh, wait. No, not a seventh sibling. A seventh son or daughter. So that would mean if your parents had 7 boys and 2 girls and you were the youngest of all the boys. Oh, thanks everybody. Trying to do a new hairstyle every day. Okay, so you could do this if you were marked by God. The term used to do this was a caul over the eyes, being 7th son or daughter, being born a survivor or left twin, being born first, well, being born feet first, so that would be called breech, right? Right. So if you were breech birth, that means you were marked by God. Or being born through C-section. Or blue. What the heck is being born through blue? I don't know. I am a member of the latter, having been born with fluid in my fluid in my lungs, because I took my first breath in the womb. Nana once said, "That's why I've always been good with animals and know when something's wrong with folks, 'cause I know what's inside 'em." That's so sweet. Or how things are. 'Cause I know what's inside 'em, or how things are. This is referred to as the gift of sight and is spoken of softly by the families who still recognize its presence. I have these marks. It is said to happen to those who will walk the banks between this world and the next. This gift isn't a psychic ability, however. We aren't born with it naturally or genetically. It is something given exclusively by God and the Spirit. Most of these folks have experiences of seeing spirits from a young age. I have not had the experience of seeing fully materialized spirits per se, but I do hear and feel them. With the occasional waist to head view of them, which would be like what you guys see of me, like where you would only see this much of a spirit. I can say a lot of times in my peripheral view, I've seen like upper shoulders head type thing. No real arms, but just this like, what do you call that? A bust. A bust. Like a torso almost, which is funny. But that I can relate to that too, Chili. Lost my place, of course. I have not had the experience of seeing fully materialized spirits per se, but I do hear and feel them with the occasional waist ahead view of them, but I can't figure any hard details. And I get that it's kind of just more like, and not a lot of mental deals and not a lot of details and not a lot of focus details. Until recently, these situations at birth were considered medically dangerous and filled mothers with worry when the doctor informed her of her child's condition. Nowadays, these things aren't paid much attention and the information is not usually given to the mother. As a result, many would-be healers never know of their gift or why they see or hear things. And that's really sad. Like, here's what's sad. Like, I know that certain people really, really, really have mental issues like schizophrenia and diseases that are really, truly there. But I think sometimes those things really are these, spirits that are manifesting to show up in our lives or talk to us, and they're maybe interpreted in the wrong way. This is just my opinion and how I feel. I guess I'd like to hear your guys' opinion, and if some of you out there are schizophrenic, then I'm not saying that that's what's wrong with you, because I'm not a doctor. It's just something I've always kind of thought, could that be? you know? But again, I don't have a lot of one-on-one practice with that, but it's just kind of something I've thought from watching. I love to watch old medical videos from the 50s and 60s, interviews with people that have different mental dis-ease. Okay, so the first thing that we go on to talk about is protection. I think we got to finish this category. There are tales of power doctors getting their knowledge from an encounter with the little folk, or simply being blessed from birth. Regardless of the tales, it has been the reputation of the worker in the community that speaks of their power's origin and their moral compass. My mother says my knack for remembering so much is due to me walking around under a black bull when I was little, like a black male cow, a black bull. Said it nearly gave her a heart attack, but I was a curious child, especially when I wasn't being watched. Okay, so the next section is called Protection, and again, if you're just joining us, we're reading Chapter 2 out of Backwoods Witchcraft, which is all about superstitions and stories and superstitions. So, protection. The old-timers have always been superstitious when it comes to ghosts, lightning, death, witches, and curses. Basically anything that could threaten their livelihood. While some of the following formulas leave no explanation for their reasoning, they are all still practiced today because, as I was told, it's just what the old folks did. These remedies and charms are tradition, and you aren't supposed to question it. No one does. With no rhyme or reason, these tricks and charms have continued in these hills containing the fragments of their parent cultures and the fixing thoughts of the mountaineers. And they work, so why question them? The most important people in the household who warranted protection and hates and the evil eye were children. Children are most susceptible to these threats in their earliest months, and it is customary to christen and baptize babies as soon as possible. Christen and baptize babies as soon as possible. Yarrow is hung at the head of a crib, and an iron nail can be driven into the post of a crib to protect the child from being taunted or taken by the little folk. If the child got sick, some folks would bring the child to the preacher or some other type of healer. My mother, a seventh daughter, blessed with the power to heal, had to only rub our bellies a certain way, and the next sunrise we were fine. How are you guys doing? You okay? Good book so far? The previous symptoms were commonly thought of among the old Irish as signs that a changeling, a double, sat in the crib while the real babe was lost somewhere in fairyland. Beliefs in changelings didn't fully make their way into Appalachia, but there are some rituals that were done to see if the babe had indeed been stolen away. One was to carry the child around a bale fire while saying the Lord's Prayer. The only sign that it is human will be if the child sneezes. Chamomile-infused milk was also fed to the infant nightly for the first 6 months of their life to protect them from evil and preserve their life until dawn. When a child died from SIDS, or sudden infant death syndrome, it was believed that it was the work of the devil or a mischievous spirit, so people naturally took up arms with measures to prevent it from happening again. However, although children are considered the most vulnerable, the elders saw power in the innocence and their purity true from sin. Because of this, they prized things made by children as powerful trinkets of protection. I've always done that. And also gifts from children. An American legacy that can be seen in the common child gifts for protection in movies and literature. One such superstition calls for a 7-year-old girl to spin thread on Good Friday, Sunday, or Christmas Day. It varies based on location and family tradition. This thread was then sewn into the hem of breeches and shirts to guard one from dis-ease, evil spirits, and curses. After the children and elders, your own self is next in line. There are a number of things one can do for protection. Carry an iron nail in the left pocket to protect yourself from the activities of the little folk, or wrap a horseshoe in aluminum foil and hang it over the door. A horseshoe wrapped in red cloth is hung upside down for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday will help get rid of haints. I'll discuss these rites in more detail in Chapter 6. Okay. As we know, the weather of Appalachia can be unpredictable in both season and severity. The lightning can particularly be threatening. Folks would walk around the home tapping 2 stones together to create a barrier that lightning couldn't penetrate. This was done with 1 black stone and 1 white stone. The Cherokee believed that wood from a tree that had been struck by lightning will protect the same and give the person wood from a tree that had been struck by lightning will protect from the same and give the person who wears it power. Geranium petals are also said to protect from lightning, as well as dog bites. When restless or troublesome spirits come to haunt the house, the potato charm is utilized. One acquires a whole unwashed potato and a small object that belonged to the deceased. I was reading this one at one point. I'd like to do it. The potato is cut in half and each side is hollowed out, made large enough for the item to fit snugly inside. The halves are then reunited, bound with red yarn, and pinned shut with nails. The charm is then taken to the grave of the spirit where it is left. The spirit will then be bound to the cemetery until they fully cross over. Other practices include hanging bunches of basil over the windows and doors to keep unwanted spirits out, hanging lavender to protect misfortune, and placing a dried corn cob beneath the doorway to attract good fortune and keep dis-ease away. In order for this to work, though, the corn cob must always remain dry or it will mold and rot away the luck, and that makes a lot of sense. To protect yourself from being witched or hoodooed, tie up a lock of your hair, a toenail clipping, and a stick from the sunny or eastern side of an oak with the red string. While invoking the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, it's said that you can be cursed or worked on as long as you have this charm on your person. However, should you ever lose the charm, the person who finds it can use it to curse you. Shish, that's no good. The lock of hair and the nail paring shows the importance of the head and feet, which are the most important powerful ways of which can lay roots on someone, by either dusting one's head while asleep or rooting on your footprints. We'll go over the importance of the head and feet more in Chapter 6. Sounds like Chapter 6 is going to be amazing. The hair and nails also act as a decoy, luring any tricks to it at first, because curses take the shortest route to the target, in this case the charm. The oak has a long history of protection and strength. These are bound with red strings symbolic of blood. One is bound inside of the grasp of curses and enchantments. To remove curses or tricks, one carries a piece of coal in the right pocket or shoe. Once the coal has diminished to dust and crumbs, the curse has been removed. The crumbs are then disposed of at a crossroads or beneath a willow tree that stands next to a stream. Return a different way than you came and cross the stream as well. The reason being the crossroads. The reason being at the crossroads will contain the curse in a kind of prison before a real grave marker. The willow tree stood as the marker of graves in Appalachia for a long period. Today, they are places to put things to rest, and you should cross the stream to deter anything from lingering or following you. The next section is good luck. My voice has been on the fritz, and we still have loads of pages, so there's probably definitely going to be a part 2. But I'm going to do as much reading as I can today, you guys. Get my voice a little hydrated here. So, good luck. We all could use good luck, I think. And if you aren't aware, we are reading Backwoods Witchcraft by Jake Richards, which we are falling in love with. The Mercury retrograde that's upcoming, and all just this energy with the eclipse that just happened and whatnot. I think I read it just happened last night, right? It's really on my my speaking today. My mouth and my mental functions are really slow. Yes, I've had a little honey today. I'll have some more. Lolita, that's a good one. And I'm actually been working on doing a video. I'll show you guys the makes to that video. It's right here. These are all the books I'm going to read from. And I just harvested some fresh elderberry. And I'm going to show you a tincture that I make and all this other stuff. But look at this fresh elderberry. It's so beautiful. So beautiful. So, I've got a video in the makes to talk about how I make one of my little tinctures there. So I'm taking care of myself. It's just I should probably be taking twice as much or something like that. Beautiful berries, right? Just beautiful berries. Reminds me of the Strawberry Shortcake cartoon from my childhood. There was this, like, pie man, and he had this, like, color on him that was, like, I can't describe it, but when I saw those berries, it brought back a memory from, like, 32 years ago, when I was, like, 4 or 5. Alright, we're going to talk about good luck. Alright, good luck. Good luck. Good luck. Hello to everyone who's here. Good luck. Life in Appalachia was hard enough without the extra misfortune that fate dealt. Closely following the concept of protection, there are tricks and wits to bring good luck and keep misfortune away. My grandmother always hung horseshoes pointing upward to keep the luck from running out. Another tradition was always keeping a jar of money by the door to keep the money coming in. That's funny because I already do that. I have my money altar there, and then I also have my coin jar there. So money's always by the door. Alright. Money, money, money. My grandmother always hung... Oh, that's not where we're at. The jar was filled with money that one found on the sidewalk or elsewhere, and it was... So that is lucky. And it was collected in anything. From an empty peanut butter jar to an old crock pot. Cornmeal was always sprinkled at the bottom to make a soft dirt for the money and to keep it off the hard bottom, so likewise the family would be kept off hard times. That's really smart, and I should redo my jar, and I should make a jar that's just money that I find on the street, you know, or just out and about, but not in my home, because I collect the money I find in my home for my own hard times. But that's a great suggestion. So cornmeal on the bottom, Nello, that's really good for the Book of Shadows, to keep the coins, you know, kind of symbolizing you, off of the bottom. And let me tell you, no matter how hard life was, we were always given or found money in some way, or found some money, and not a day went by that we didn't have some type of food to eat, as long as that jar sat by. When you find money, you should pick up the coin or dollar and place it in your left pocket until it can be added to the jar. That's another great note there. Add it to your left pocket until it can be added to the jar. Money from the jar can be spent. That surprises me. Good to know. But it should never be totally emptied and should always have 7 or more of one type of currency. For example, 7 dimes, 7 pennies, 7... Yeah, okay, got it. So at the very bottom you have a pile of 7 dimes, 7 pennies, 7 quarters, 7 nickels. You never take those out. Those are what lays at the bottom of the cornmeal. And then above that, you can spend the rest. That's makes me feel better, because everything on my money altar, and I've given $2 bills like crazy to that thing, also $1 bills, and I've got a $10 bills, like in different workings and things like that. And what I'm trying to say is that I know that money I've made from my money altar I never spend. It is given to the altar, and I would never spend that monies. But I have a separate change jar that's like by the door, and now I know how I'm gonna make it bring in more luck. You know, more luck. Alright, so where are we? You of course know that 4-leaf clovers and ladybugs are lucky, and it's the same here in Appalachia. However, a 4-leaf clover has to be found when you aren't looking for it, and no one else can ever see the clover or it will lose its power. Wow, fantastic. To keep a found 4-leaf clover secret, folks would tuck it away in their Bible. And that's funny because my nan used to tuck hers away in her Bible. I think I found a bookmark in one of my relatives' Bibles with a clover in it. So folks would tuck it away in their Bible along with their own picture under the clover. Or they'd put it in the Bible's cover. Some folks would even sew clovers in the rim of hats underneath where you couldn't see it, or in the inner lining of their shoes. Good luck also comes. A mojo bag would be a great place for that. You could keep it on your person. Try and sit down for a little bit again. See how that goes. How? Good luck also comes if you find a 4-hold button or a heads-up penny and put it in your right shoe. A spider found nesting in the kitchen is another sign of luck and abundance and would never be disturbed. Wait. The family would never go hungry as long as it made camp. Seeing the new moon for the first time each month over your left shoulder is also seeing good luck, but not if you see it through the trees. Old folks also weren't afraid of using animal parts and leftovers for remedies and charms. Whether they cooked worms by the fire to make an oil for arthritis or rubbed rabbit brains on the gums for a toothache. I'll have to note that in my toothache section. they weren't the least bit squeamish. Therefore, my animal parts and bones are used for good luck and gambling. The most famous is the bone of a black cat. Black cats are notoriously thought to be bad luck. Old formulas called for using the bones of a black cat. The skeleton was taken into a creek where the water flows to the south, and the bones were dropped into the water. One bone would float and go upstream. It's that one bone that would be lucky. Other variations call for it to be done in the wood or simply in the home. Or the creek is replaced with a pot of milk into which the hot bones are dropped, and either the first one to come to the surface or wine like a cat was the lucky bone. These bone washing formulas, as I can recall them, or call them, derive from Europe, and over time they have been adapted to be more humane. More recent tales specify using bones of a naturally deceased black cat, so like roadkill, or one that you had that passed away, or a friend had that passed away. The formulas and charms I use were recommended by the old-timers in the mountains. For example, a bone from the right paw of an opossum is carried for luck and success, which works just as well. Other good luck charms are deer horn points worn around the neck, which also protects from the evil eye, or a muskrat or rabbit foot carried on the person. Bad luck. Bad luck was something mountain folk just couldn't afford. If the crops began to rot or someone had an accident and couldn't get care, it could decimate their daily lives. Is Thomas here in the chat? I think we actually read this whole entire chapter on another video. Hey Thomas, did we do this in a whole nother video already? Like 2 weeks ago? Or a week ago? Because I know I've read this, and normally I don't read it before. We're going to move on to bad luck. Thomas, did we do a video of this chapter already? I think that we did. You guys, I remember doing a video on this. Because it's like going to say don't burn sassafras in the home. Or pine wood. Maybe I just read it. I'm just really like, does anyone else? No? Okay, no one remembers this. Okay, good. That's good. We'll keep going. I think I read the chapter from start to finish in the car or something then, because like I honestly feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone a little bit. Okay. Bad luck. Bad luck. Bad luck, bad luck, bad luck. Maybe so. Maybe I did, I must have, because all of this I've read, so I must have read it in the car. Okay. Bad luck was something mountain folk just couldn't afford. If the crops began to rot or someone had an accident and couldn't get care, it could decimate their daily lives. So they listened close to Granny's tall tales, lest fate be tempted. Oh my god, that was not. Here are a few things to be wary of. It is bad luck to open an umbrella inside the house, to come in a door you didn't go out from, and to spill salt or oil. Don't burn sassafras or pine wood in the home. Burning cedar or dogwood inside is also said to bring bad luck. Likewise, dogwood blooms shouldn't ever be brought into the house, because it is said that... I did do a video on this, because at this point it's when I said, so you should take your dogwood, your all the things you shouldn't have in the house, out to the shed where you can also open your umbrella, open and shut it 100 times. You guys remember that? We've read this chapter. Oh well. It's okay. I want them to be in succession on my videos, and so it's fine. I just think it's hilarious. I've already done this video. Yeah, remember when I said that about, like, take it all out to the shed where you can keep it, and then you can open up your umbrella 100 times if you want to, and just have a good old time. Yeah, that was like less than a week ago. Oh well, we'll continue. We'll continue, because that would be a waste of an hour, and I don't want to waste an hour. Probably just drilling it deeper into our heads, you guys, which is great. Okay, on to more. When a new candle is brought into the house, the wick must be lit and immediately snuffed to keep the bad luck out. And I said I didn't know that one. Women weren't allowed at the coal mines, and most people believed that they would bring bad luck to the mine. When a fish is caught, the fish should be thanked, or bad luck will befall the home, and the cabinets will be bare within the season. To point at a graveyard, especially one with a new grave in it, will invite sickness or death. It is in these superstitions that the folks sometimes went to extremes. Bad stuff was terrifying for them and could literally end their lives as they knew it. They went to the extreme even in the medicine, ingesting turpentine or kerosene, for example. I say that 100 more times, but you wouldn't know the truth of it unless you were from here. Extreme measures included wearing powdered gizzards or manure in the shoes to keep off conjuring, carrying a rag with dried blood from a bull's ankle, or for health and vigor, or drinking sheep nanny tea for measles, which was made from sheep manure. The next section is healing. Oh my god, we just read that. We've read all this. Oh well, we're getting through it. Modern medical services weren't widely available in Appalachia for quite some time, so folks relied on old charms and remedies for their ailments, just as their immigrant ancestors had done. Warts were fairly common and irritating due to poor hygiene at the time. My grandfather could wipe a wart off with a rag and a prayer, or buy it from you. Sadly, Papa passed before I could learn about this particular method for removing warts, but my mother taught me that a bit more involved, but works just as well. Quartz, known as the mountain quartz, is abundant in the fields and streams. The charms use these white stones picked from the creek that flows south or west. You take up the same number of stones as warts that need to be removed. The stones are picked from the creek, but one must go with the river's flow to get them. So take your hand and follow the current in the same direction as you lower your hand down in the water to snatch up the stone, taking care not to disturb the flow of the water as you drop your hand down into the creek or bed as you come back up the same stone. It is believed that if the current is disturbed, it annoys the spirits. Each stone is then touched to a wart 3 times and placed in a small pouch and then hung on a cow's horns or a fence post in a field, or left at the crossroads to wait for the next person who will open the bag of warts and get them. My grandfather had a gift for stopping the flow of blood. Not many people can do this successfully or even as great as he could, in my opinion. Sometimes he would indirectly stop a woman's flow, like her menstrual flow. There are a couple methods I've heard of. One requires a rag that is dampened with holy water and left out overnight on Christmas Eve. This rag is used throughout the year to stop wounds from bleeding, much like Irish brat, an Irish brat being left out to be blessed by the goddess Bridget on February 1st. What's an Irish brat? The other method for stopping bleeding entails passing the left hand clockwise over the wound, reciting the following words. Quite enough so the patient cannot hear. Quiet enough so the patient cannot hear. Jesus was born in Bethlehem, baptized in the Jordan River. When the water was wild in the woods, God spoke and the water stood. And so shall thy blood. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. Papa told my mom he couldn't cross running water for 24 hours after performing this rite. To cross it would undo the charm and the blood of the flow again. And the blood would flow again. Another practice he did was he'd give the person a red string to tie around their neck or on their left wrist to stop the blood. It was believed the blood would be stopped by the knot in the yarn. Water is another powerful medicine. Water collected at daybreak on Easter morning, Good Friday, Ash Wednesday is said to be a cure for multiple illnesses. Rainwater from the gutters is applied to rashes. That's great notes for your Book of Shadows. Rainbooks from the water. La 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 la. Rainwater from the gutters applied to rashes, and the water, urine. Oh, and the water or urine collected from the cow is tossed into someone's feet to change their luck around. So basically, like, if you know a farmer, you can ask for things like cow's urine. I mean, sure, they'll collect it for you if you're going to pay money for it, you know. If they were to collect one cow's pee, it would fill up, like, one of our biggest jugs of our biggest mason jars, like those big things. Cows have gigantic bladders, so if you have these random things that you're reading about in these books, just go to a local farm or Google, and if you don't know where one exists, they're there. Just Google, you know, local goat farm, local cow farm, local chicken farm, local duck farm. They're everywhere. Okay, or if you're lucky enough to have a cow, you can collect their urine. I don't think it's too hard. I've, of course, never tried to do it, but I want to have another cow in my lifetime, and I'll let you know if it turns out being difficult. Alright. But yeah, we call that water collected from a cow, but really it's urine. It's a nicer way to say it, though. Cow water. Ocean water, where are we at? Water found at the grooves of boulders. There we are. Water found in the grooves of boulders was given the same respect, as it also never touched the soil. Likewise, in Ireland, we find the noted healing belief in well water, that's what I drink, whose surface had never been touched or broken by man. This will be covered more in Chapter 10. Ocean water is known to help heal anything from deep wounds to rheumatoid arthritis. My grandmother had knee surgery, and 4 months afterward was plagued by painful knees. Some cousins were vacationing at the beach, and she called them up and told them to fill a big jar with some ocean water. They brought back a 5-gallon pickle jar of seawater, big enough that my grandmother put both her legs in and soaked them to relieve the pain. Oh yes, absolutely. Absolutely. She did that for a week, and her knees have never bothered her as bad since. There you go, you guys. That's absolutely magical for sure. Just something as simple as seawater. And hope and focus and intention. You know, besides charms and magical waters, the people of Appalachia have relied on home remedies and herbal medicines for healing. For croup, which is a cough that I think anybody can get, but children get it a lot, and it's that one that sounds so bad and it hurts so bad if you've ever had it. It's spelled C-R-O-U-P. It's heartbreaking. For croup, we just drink the juices of a baked onion. So you bake an onion and then throw it through your juicer. For rashes, we mash plantain into a paste and apply it generously. We had the common sense that herbs may not always work, so our remedies often included man's medicine or chemicals. Whether turpentine, cod liver oil, or lard, we tried different things and kept the ones that worked. When I was little, I professionally despised the hot toddy my grandmother would make and give to us. Had she heard a pitch when we coughed. Now I cherish it as one of my best cures. For a common cold, Mama always said to get 2 cloves of garlic and cut them in half. Take half from each and tie them onto the person's feet, right on their soles. Within about an hour, their breath would smell like garlic, at which point Mama would take the tied cloves. Within about an hour their breath would smell like garlic? That's nuts, you guys. But I'm going to say this again. It just proves the palms of your hand, the soles of your feet, the quickest way to get things into your blood system. That's what I tell you with essential oils. Again, I have to say it, I'm not a doctor. We're just here reading books, getting knowledge together. But essential oils, if you want them to work quickly, it's, palms of hands, bottom of feet, and there you go. Within an hour, just by putting the cut side of a clove of garlic in the arch of your foot, your breath will smell like garlic. It's amazing. Their breath would smell like garlic within an hour, at which point Mama would take the tied cloves and chuck them out the back door. So I think she was catching that cough or something because it came through their breath. The other 2 halves were then replaced, and the same process was repeated. After the second round of cloves had been thrown out, they'd soak their feet in warm salt water to pull the cold out. Next section is called marking and mirroring. Marking and mirroring. Garlic has so many useful things. I even have a book by one of my favorite authors, Stanley Burroughs, all about garlic. I do. I think it's called The Miracle of Garlic. It's just a real thin book like the Master Cleanses. Alright, marking and mirroring. I grew up hearing about children being marked by their mothers in the womb by things that the mother did. Rah. I'm one example. When my mother was 3 months pregnant with me, she was thrown out of a moving truck going 75 miles per hour. Thankfully, we were both okay, but I was born with a birthmark on my back in the shape of a pickup truck. What? That's nuts. That situation imprinted so literally that it showed up as a pickup truck. That's amazing. Okay, the belief is that if the mother is frightened by something, her baby could be marked with a birthmark in the shape of what frightened her, or have a physical resemblance to something or someone. On the other hand, the babe could be marked by someone the mother loved dearly. My grandson, whose mother is my best friend, had a dimple on his upper cheek, just like mine, that shows when he smiles. This also applies anytime the mother goes against a taboo, such as walking over a grave or going to a funeral. A baby born to a woman who does this will be born pale and ghostly or with a deformity. Wow. So you guys, those of y'all who are pregnant and you're visiting graveyards, whether it be for your craft, which you should You know, honestly, if I was pregnant and visiting a graveyard, I probably wouldn't be visiting the graveyard until I was done being pregnant. Because I do have enough dirts to work with, and I wouldn't want to run the risk. But at the same time, if you don't want to stop it in your practice, I would just say to be super careful. But yeah. So, right. You can be marked if you walking over a grave or going to a funeral. A baby born to a woman who does this will be born pale and ghostly or with a deformity. Or if a pregnant woman has a major craving for something that can't be fully satisfied, her baby will be born with some kind of physical evidence of it. One of my cousins craved strawberries the whole time while she was pregnant, and her son was born with a birthmark on his ankle shaped like a strawberry. There's no logic behind these sayings, but I've seen them fulfilled enough times to believe it. The behavior of the mother could also mark the baby. If she is a disabled person, her child will be born with the same disability. What? Hold on, let me just make sure I read that right. The behavior of the mother could also mark the baby. Could also mark the baby. If she is whiny while pregnant, she will have a whiny kid. If she made fun of a disabled person, her child would be born with the same disability. There you go. Okay. Dang. The old folks didn't always render to these foreign powers. They developed their own formulas for having the child be a certain way. The marking or mirroring charms they developed mostly surround the care for a child after it's born, but not always. The first cup of water a mother should carry after birth should be a thimble full of water. She's to carry it from the driveway up to the house and to the child without spilling a drop. This keeps the child from drooling a lot through infancy. She also shouldn't cross over running water until the child is 1 month old. Otherwise, it's said to bring illness on both the mother and the baby. The latter isn't very reasonable in today's age with concrete roads. We never know when we're traveling over a natural creek anymore. The next section is birth, labor, and child care. And then after that, and that's the last section, so hey, we did make it all the way through chapter 2. And the next one is called Barefoot Wandering, Connecting with the Land. Really excited to read those to you guys. Doing well. Hello to everybody that's here. What can you say? Oh wow, you have a butterfly birthmark, Michelle. That's really cool. That's really cool. Maybe your mom drew a lot of butterflies while she was pregnant. You should ask her. Alright, so birth, labor, and childcare. Besides those, about the condition of the mother affecting her baby, there are a plethora of superstitions around divining if one is pregnant and the birthing process. One my mother has always followed is placing an egg in a glass to determine if a woman is pregnant. First, the egg is rubbed over the woman's belly in a cross formation. The woman then blows on the egg and drops into a clear glass of water. If the egg sinks, the woman is with child. If it floats, she is not. This practice was often paired with a way to predict the sex of the child. A gold wedding ring was suspended from 3 hairs taken from the crown of the expectant mother's head. She is to lie down as Christ was laid, Nana says. As Christ was laid, Nana says, meaning her head should be pointing west. The ring is dangled over her navel, and Psalm 23 was recited. You can look up Psalm 23 if you like. It's in your Bible, or it's online. If the ring rotates in a circle over the belly, it's a girl. If it swings back and forth, it's a boy. If a woman wishes to be free from her pregnancy symptoms, especially morning sickness, all she's got to do is crawl over her lover to get out of bed in the morning. This will pass the symptoms on to him. So for all those men out there who are like, I wish I could have your morning sickness, you can be like, okay. Sorry, that was funny. Yeah, this will pass the symptoms on to him. Morning sickness if you crawl over your partner in the morning. Okay, I've seen this work multiple times. Not for the men, necessarily, but it still worked. About 80% of the charms surrounding women have to do with birthing process. This was old Appalachia, where a woman's role was to bear children. That role was very dangerous in that time, as with all things. The mountaineer took up faith and charm and used them together for aid. This, to ease birthing pains, a Bible open to the book of Matthew is placed on a woman's chest or stomach. The location depends on the necessity. If a child is in danger, the stomach. If the mother, the chest. A knife, arrowhead, or axe is placed beneath the bed to cut the pains into pieces and render them harmless. In today's hospitals, these aren't acceptable. So make a tea with these boiled in water for the mother to drink. In case of possible hemorrhaging during labor, chicken feathers were burned under the bed. A bundle, that would smell bad, I would guess. A bundle of 6 feathers should be gathered by the father of another man in the house. If not the father, I've heard it should be done by a graying man. It was best if the feathers were plucked straight from the chicken, but this wasn't a requirement at the time. Birth came with sadness sometimes. Stillbirths were common in the hills. In the case of a stillborn child, the mother needed a way to dry her milk, her lactation, without the physical pain being added to her grief. Oh, God, that'd be bad. Also, I do know of a place where you can get breast milk online for anybody that was wondering. There are people that pump their breast milk and sell it. Like, ship it. You know. So I just saying, if you need that information, I found a resource, so there's that. In the case of a stillborn child, the mother needed a way to dry her milk without the physical pain of being added to her grief. A charm was devised just for that. Camphor on a cotton wad was placed in the child's grave to dry up the mother's milk. If a woman continued to have stillborn children, Nana always said she could name the next boy Adam. He'll live, and she won't have another stillborn. Typically, a child wasn't called by their birth name for much of their childhood to keep them safe from the evil eye and hates. That's such cool information, because actually that's so funny. When we were coming into this whole like digital age, I was like, and I had a MySpace profile when my daughter was born. And I thought, I should put a fake name up there, because what if something bad happened? I'd never, let myself be forgiven about it and stuff. Because the internet, like, seriously scared me, and I would hear stories about people getting in trouble, meeting people online. And this was like, 2004 or 5 or 6. Yeah, 6. Alright, moving along. About 80%. Did we read that? About 80% of the charms surrounding women have to do with the birthing process. This was old Appalachia. Wait, we already read that. That's oh, here we go. Typically, a child wasn't called by their birth name for much of their childhood to keep them safe from the evil eye and hates. For most of my childhood, my family called me Bubba. And his name is Jake. Jake Richards. Childcare was a whole other story. Many times, charms were devised to aid the child's health, but also to ease the labor of the parent. A stuttering child was believed to be cured by drinking water from a church bell or a baptism pool. The teething phase can be hard for mothers and child, but especially for a woman of old Appalachia with likely more than 3 children to care for and a house to clean. Among other things, the child is given a dime with a hole put through it with a nail to wear around their neck. For a boy, the dime must come from an aunt. For a girl, it has to come from her uncle in order to have its charm. To ease the discomfort, Mama would also rub our gums with a silver thimble placed on her ring finger, said to be the best for applying medicine and prayer. A deer tooth necklace also helps with teething, as does a necklace made from strung elderberries, which is our next video. We're talking all about elderberries. And we have like 12 books to read out of. So, there's that. A deer tooth necklace also helps with teething, as does a necklace made of strung elderberries, dried and dipped in the creek on Easter morning. These stories and tricks are passed down in families and communities, routinely offered as wives' tales, curses, or simple reminiscing of things that helped folks get along in their daily life. We have a good helping of these stories to tell should you ever make your way down to these mountains. The tea is always made, and Lord willing, it'll be a good day to sit on the porch in one of the wicker rocking chairs. So now that you know how we think, how open we are to the presence of the unknown, and the bits of wisdom we continue to follow to this day, let's work on putting our hands and feet to use and doing and working with the forces that run up one side of these mountains and down the other. Oh yeah. Go ahead and kick those shoes off. It's time to greet the land that you're on. One cannot work the roots of the land, harvest herbs, or converse with the spirits if one is not first acquainted with the soil that calls it home to all. The soil beneath your feet is the firmament of this work, and you need to know it. So then the next chapter, which is chapter 3, is called Connecting with the Land. Barefoot Wandering, Connecting with the Land. So that is the next chapter. We'll be coming back for Backwoods Witchcraft, as we're going to read this whole entire book. I've done this with 3 other hoodoo books on my channel, but not one yet that's on any kind of Appalachian magic. You guys, I look forward to showing you this elderberry video. I'm hoping to do that at some point today, but I might not get a chance until tomorrow. Look at all these amazing books that we have to read from on it. I'm just so excited about it. So I will talk to you soon. Thanks for joining me, Jen the Taxidermy Witch. Below in the description is my Etsy shop if you need anything, and my Patreon if you want to contribute to the channel, because the channel really does live on even the small $1 to $5 a month. So much love to everybody, and I will see you back very, very soon. Have a beautiful and blessed day. Bye!